Well, welcome back to Not Alone with Melissa Sue Methvin. Today, I have an incredible guest, Dr. Michelle Jorgensen. And this is not just another dental podcast. This is from me as a dental hygienist for over 16 years. And also, my late husband was a dentist. We owned a practice for over 16 years. So I've seen the progression from out of school to owning to the stress factors. I've sat by his side seeing the load. And also when he passed 3 years ago and died by suicide, I started asking questions. Why? Why is dentistry at the top highest rates for suicide? Why? I was on so many podcasts and a lot of people would ask me that. And in my first book, I did write a chapter about dentistry in what I started seeing signs as to maybe the root causes as to why it's the highest rate for burnouts. Think of other healthcare professions that are really high stress, but they're still not at the top for suicide. So I truly believe today, Dr. Michelle Jorgensen will shine a light that needs to be heard not only for the patients, but for the dental community. I have no doubt in my mind that this affected my husband. And I'm honored to have you on my podcast. I'm getting a little emotional because I know I'm getting to the root cause by hearing
Yeah,
your
well,
story.
and I
And
am so excited to be here today.
yes, thank you. Thank you. And I would love to start with kind of your story because I know you became really sick as a dentist. And I think for me, the root cause of mercury poisoning was very much prevalent for my husband in his practice. He removed amalgams so much in his beginning of his career. He was known as a cosmetic dentist to remove all these amalgams for years and years and years. And now hearing your story of mercury toxicity, it's like a light bulb went on. It's like, oh
Yep.
my gosh. And you know what else? I got my kids tested for heavy metals, and my son and daughter were high in mercury. And so it just got me to dive even deeper. So I'm going to let you just share because I feel like there's just so much we need to cover.
Yep. And I'm just really excited to be here. I'm so sorry for your loss, first of all. And this is one of the reasons that I share, is because it's absolutely devastating if people don't know, first of all, that this can happen, what you can do about it. And I am exactly where you are on the, I believe this is the root cause for this high rate of suicide. I often, it's not a joking matter, but we'll kind of joke and laugh and think, certainly there are careers and professions that are more stressful than dentistry. I mean, yes, there's stress in dentistry, no doubt. I've been a practice owner for, nearly 30 years now. But there are a lot of professions that have a lot of stress. And I've thought there's got to be there has to be a missing piece here, something else. So, yes, my story, I'm a general dentist. I've been practicing, like I said, for nearly 30 years now. And I started practicing with my father. I just thought I would pretty much go through my career like he has. He's actually in his mid 70s. He's still practicing dentistry. He practices in a maximum security prison.
Wow.
So it's a crazy thing he's doing now, but I just thought that's what I would do. That I would just keep practicing forever, and I love dentistry. It sounds like your husband probably did as
He
well.
did. He did.
Yeah, I was a cosmetic dentist also for many, many years, and our practice was growing and things were growing great. But things weren't going great for my body, for myself. And I started getting really sick. And anytime you get sick, you just start doing the things you already know. My grandfather was an internist. My father was a dentist. And so we knew modern medicine. That's what I knew. That's what I was trained in. That's what I had really grown up trusting. And as I started going to every doctor I could potentially find, I wasn't getting a lot of answers. In fact, I wasn't getting really any answers. Mostly they would just hand me a prescription and kind of hope I would go away, I think, mostly.
Yes.
So my symptoms started out with gut issues. And, in today's day and age, everybody just kind of looks at you like, well, doesn't everybody have gut problems? And it seems like everybody you talk to does. So I thought, well, I'm nothing special here. So we started changing our diet. We threw away all of our food and it started throwing away everything that everybody says isn't good for you. And it helped a little. but it didn't help a lot. In fact, it got to the point where I couldn't even drink water without pain sometimes.
Wow.
So,
Just I don't want to interrupt, but
no,
this is was my first sign too, was the gut. It hit the gut. And I always tell people the only thing I could
yep,
drink was bone broth. I could barely
yep,
keep that down. So
yep, yep,
that definitely
exactly
starts
right.
there.
And a lot of people just think, oh, this is something else, right? It's bacteria, it's a parasite, So we started doing all of the testing for all of that. Nothing was coming up. The next sign that was really big was my memory. And I've always had a really good memory. I could remember things, especially anything written. I could just have a picture of it in my head. And I could remember patients' names for forever. I could remember their faces. They would come in and I would remember their entire story and all their kids' names. And, that was just that was just the way my brain worked. Well, I stopped being able to remember a patient's name from room to room. I couldn't even remember the person I worked on 10 minutes ago. So it was very obvious something had changed. My team could tell something had changed. My husband could tell something had changed. So again, doctor after doctor, no results, no answers, no anything. But the one that was really life changing and practice changing was that I had numbness all the way down my hands, my arms. I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't blow dry my hair. I couldn't brush my teeth. I couldn't, use a pen. Hardly, I couldn't write more than a sentence or two, and my hand was completely numb, just painfully numb. And it got to the point where I couldn't hold my dental instruments very well anymore. I was, you're in the dental industry. I couldn't
Yes.
change my burrs. The
Wow.
handpiece on the handpiece. I couldn't change them anymore. I had to hand it to my assistant, and she would change them for me, and then hand them back. And I started thinking, perhaps I shouldn't be doing this job anymore. If I literally can't even hold instruments, and I would have to stop and shake my hand out, and it was really to the point where I thought I shouldn't do this job anymore and I can't do this job anymore. And I was going to chiropractor like 2, 3 times a week. I was having massage twice a week. I was doing everything I could think of. I was exercising and weightlifting. And I mean, on and on and on and on. I tried everything and nothing was making a difference. So I said, well, I guess I'm going to have to sell the practice. At the time, like I said, my father and I were practicing together, but we had independent practices. So I put the practice up for sale and I thought, well, I've learned a lot about nutrition, and changing our diet. So maybe I could do something with nutrition. And I actually found a dentist that had a nutritionist in his office. So I reached out, got a hold of him, and I talked to him and I said, do you think I could, just like do nutrition out of a dental practice? What do you think about that? And he said, wait a minute. Tell me your symptoms again. They sound so much like mine. Have you ever looked into mercury as a potential problem? And I said, well, no, I don't have any fillings. I knew that amalgam fillings or silver fillings had mercury, but I said, I don't have any fillings. And, I was taught that they're completely safe once they're in the mouth. And he said, well, regardless of what you've been taught, perhaps it would be worth just getting tested. And he was right. I had never been tested for that. So I said, well, okay, let's get tested. So I got tested and that's what it was. Mercury toxicity off the charts. So at this point, I was a little shocked. I had no idea that this could even be a problem for a dentist,
Yeah,
right? In
because
fact, in
in
dental
school
school,
they always say, never said it was unsafe and everyone,
nope,
it's not even something that's being talked about. I know I've gone to
at all.
many dental conferences and it never comes up as a topic.
Never. And, in fact, in school, I was told that if I did tell someone that these fillings could affect their health, that I would actually lose my license. So it was the last thing I was going to tell anybody. But here I literally almost lost my career because of mercury. And it wasn't the fillings I had. Like I said, I didn't have any. It was the fillings I was drilling out every single day on patients because as a cosmetic dentist, people didn't like the way they looked. And when that mercury, now I can say things. Now I can say these things. When that mercury is drilled on, it actually vaporizes the mercury. And mercury vapor is going to rise. Anything vaporous is typically going to rise. Well, where's the dentist's head? Right above the patient. But this doesn't just go for the dentist, the hygienist. When you're using what's called a cavitron, I mean, you know what this is.
Oh
Obviously,
yes.
people listening, it's the mechanical or the electrical tool that hygienists will use to clean teeth. When you hit a mercury filling, a silver amalgam filling, it will release mercury vapors. When that vapor is released, it's released into the dental, into the air of the dental office. That's going to affect the dental assistant. It's going to affect the dental receptionist. That's going to affect everybody sitting in that dental office. It's going to even affect the people in the waiting room, that aren't there for that procedure, but are breathing that same air that it's being released into. that mercury is now released 24/7 in anybody's mouth. It's released every single time you chew, it's released every single time you swallow, every single time you eat something hot and then cold. So this is not talked about in dentistry, and to me it's an absolute travesty. Like, I have had major, obviously, the health issues I talked about, but one that's really, really sensitive and near and dear to my heart is fertility issues. I have literally never been able to get pregnant my entire life, and we did in vitro fertilization, had twins. We were so fortunate. Had two more failed attempts and adopted two other children because I've never been able to get pregnant. And there's a huge correlation between mercury and fertility in women. How many
Oh,
women
wow.
work inside of dentistry?
Yes.
Like, the
Wow.
large majority of the people in not dentists 50%, but everybody else are women, right?
Right.
Hygienists, dental
Oh,
assistants, reception,
yes.
they're all women. This is all women that we're talking about. So not only gut issues, which are directly correlated with mercury, neurologic issues, and mercury is a neurotoxin, so it's going to affect your memory, it's gonna affect, but feeling and sensation like I
Yeah, nerve
had.
damage. My husband talked about nerve damage. He was taking these medicines for nerve damage, and
You
sometimes he
got it.
would do local injection on himself on his back because he was so much pain and inflammation and couldn't get to the root cause. There was like a list of medications for all the symptoms, but now I have no doubt in my mind that it was
Yep.
all the mercury poisoning. And now I love the story that you talk about, the Mad Hatter story.
Mhm.
You know,
Yep.
can you share the Mad Hatter story, about
Yes.
mercury and where
So this
this
is
might be illegal? Is this illegal in some places to place amalgam?
It is. It's actually been banned in many European countries. So, in fact, many countries have been without it for 20 plus years. But yeah, the origination of these fillings. So people are clear what I'm talking about. These are silver fillings. So if you look in your mouth, you look in somebody's mouth, and you see kind of a black, grayish looking thing in a tooth, that is the kind of filling I'm talking about. Any kind of metallic filling other than gold. There are a few little gold restorations hanging around. They were really done a lot of many years ago, but anything metal in your mouth is most likely going to be the kind of filling I'm talking about. And it is 50% mercury. We talk about mercury in fish. We talk about mercury in vaccines. Is anyone talking about mercury in dental fillings? And it is the number one source for mercury in the environment. Is dental fillings being drilled out, washing down our drains, going into the water system? So this is absolutely huge. And it started in Europe in the 1800s. At the time, there was no such thing as a dentist. There were barbers and there were doctors that were both doing dentistry. So barbers had you in a chair, they would lean you back, cut your hair, do a shave, and fill a tooth or yank a tooth. And the doctors were doing the same. They were the ones that were doing dentistry. And the barbers were getting real tired of pulling teeth. And I can only imagine, I've pulled teeth on people that are numb, and I have really great instruments and lights and everything, and they're doing it not numb. No, no way to really do this. I can't even imagine. So they figured out that they can mix silver shavings with elemental mercury, the liquid kind that's in a thermometer. They could mix it together and it would form kind of this putty material that they could shove in a tooth, in a hole in a tooth, and it would harden. And it wouldn't lead to, the tooth wouldn't further decay, or it would at least slow it down. It would take care of a lot of the problem. So they were ecstatic. Like, this was a phenomenal invention, right? Be able to slow down tooth decay, to be able to save a tooth, perhaps. But the doctor said, we actually think this is a really bad idea because right around the same time, the common use for mercury was in hat making. People would rub mercury on fur and it would turn it into felt. And this is when all the men were wearing these felt hats. So they were using mercury to make felt hats. Well, what was happening is these young men who were doing this procedure with this mercury on the fur, they were getting what they would call Danbury shakes. They were shaking so bad they couldn't feed themselves anymore. And these were young 20 something young men. They couldn't walk. They looked like they were drunk when they were walking. Their speech was slurred. So they started calling them Mad Hatters because they literally looked and acted like they were mad. The doctors realized it was from the mercury.
Wow.
So they said, we think it's a really bad idea to put mercury in people's mouths because we see that it's actually like killing these people that are working with it in their jobs. And the barber said, it's working great for us. We're going to keep going. And they did. And that's what the United States, when dentistry came to the United States, these silver mercury fillings were just part of standard of care. And they have been ever
And they
since.
happen,
So
especially pediatric. because they're
especially
like,
in pediatrics.
especially pediatric, because they're like, well, it's less expensive and they're going to lose that tooth anyways.
Yep. Yep. And it's commonly done. Now, the FDA, I believe it's the FDA, has said that they are not recommended in children under the age of 6 or pregnant women. This has been a huge advance actually in our country. But anytime I hear that, I always think, well, if not them, then why anyone?
Anyone.
I don't really think it would be a great idea in anybody. But yes, they are still placed. So people will often, that's usually the next comment to me. They'll say, "Oh, well, aren't you glad that they're not placed anymore?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're
Right.
placed every day, all day long in dental offices throughout the country.
Oh,
This
yes.
is standard of care, particularly in lower demographic areas, places where dental insurance is really the only way people are able to pay for care, or Medicaid, particularly. Usually, these silver fillings are the fillings of choice that Medicaid will pay for, which is really, to me, a tragedy. So these are still being placed every day, but not only being placed, they're being removed every
Mhm.
day because these fillings actually crack your teeth. They create all kinds of, you've seen it,
Yes.
they create all kinds of cracks in the tooth. There's new decay underneath them. They lead to all sorts of tooth problems. So dentists, whether they understand this component about health or not, they're removing mercury fillings all day long every day because they're just ruining teeth and breaking teeth. And, they just, with wear and tear, they wear out. They have to be
And
replaced.
not only
So,
that, with the metal, it's like you can explain what it does as well with the 5G and everything. It's just energetically, it's just like an antenna for
yep.
all of that, which causes inflammation in the body and, so many root cause illnesses. But, I feel there's just so much to cover, but with what I'm trying to do is empower everybody, start a movement, because if there's more patients asking, about, okay, I don't want this metal anymore in my mouth, and do you do the SMART protocol? Because there's also a protocol to how to remove them to protect the patient and protect the dentist as well. So it's like, it's supply and demand, right? How we can
Yep.
shift the
Yep.
career instead of
Yep.
starting with maybe, oh, the ADA and all this, let's start with the patient really asking. Let's start that movement. So this is why I'm trying to be an advocate as well. And I know, I pray a prayer of protection every day because there's people that are not going to like me doing that, you know, but I'd love for you
Yep.
to dive into as well. My friends, families are really curious about why no metal compared, even implants. Why not? Why doing ceramic implants instead of, and then dive into root canals, cavitations. These are all very new terms to people as to why might not be a good idea for them.
Yep. So to finish on the mercury filling piece, the most important thing that you as a consumer, somebody with teeth needs to know is number one, they are being placed, but you can choose to not have them. So you can choose what's called a composite resin or a ceramic dental restoration instead, and both highly recommended. They are great. There is no metal involved in them at all. But if you currently have old mercury fillings in your mouth, the only way to have them removed is with certain protocols. So that's kind of the end of the story, or not even the end of the story. The middle of my story is, to be able to get better, the doctor said, well, you can't keep putting this mercury in if you're going to actually get it out. We can figure out and help you detox this and get it out of your body, but you can't keep breathing it in if you're going to get it out at the same time. So they said, well, are there ways you can do these procedures and not breathe it in? And I said, I don't know, but I'm going to go find out. So I started searching and I found an organization called the IAOMT. Had never heard of them before. They had an entire protocol. Who knew? Other dentists don't know. I can guarantee you that. So they have an entire protocol that is called SMART. And what that is a safe mercury amalgam removal technique. That's what it stands for, but it's a safe procedure. So what needs to happen is if you're going to get these removed, I recommend you get them removed, but only do it if you do it safely. So you're going to find someone who is able to do it this way. You're going to notice a difference when you walk in that room. You're going to have coverings on, you're going to have a rubber dam on your mouth. You're going to have a mask on your nose. You're going to have a giant vacuum at your chin that's going to suck the vapors away. The dentist will wear a special mercury mask as well, the dental assistant. All of these things need to be in place if you're going to have it removed. So if ever this is the most common question, well, where do I find one of those dentists? Two places. I have a directory on my website. So my website is livingwellwithdrmichelle.com. It's a free directory. Go on there, find a dentist near you, or you can go on the website of the IAOMT. So IAOMT.org. And that website will also have all of the people who have been trained in the SMART protocol. So that is what you need to know is do not get them removed unless you're going to do it safely. And when you do it, please make sure that you're working with a functional medicine practitioner, somebody that can help get that mercury out of your system, because I am exactly like you. And I've gotten emotional on podcasts before talking about this, saying, if I can save one dentist from what I went through,
Yes.
and if I can save one dentist from what you've gone through and your husband went through, I have had 3 friends that have committed suicide this year alone in
Wow.
dentistry.
Wow.
And it's not okay.
I know. I get
It's
a
not
text.
okay.
I honestly get a text because I have a big dental community in my life on a monthly basis. So
Yeah.
this
It's
is,
not
yeah,
okay.
no.
It's not okay. And really people ask, well, why are we still placing them? Like, why are we not talking about it? And I have a belief, this is opinion. This isn't a scientific fact, but the way that our world works in the United States, it's very litigious. So if ADA, FDA were to come out and say, oh, dental mercury fillings are dangerous, they're toxic, every dentist that has placed or removed one would be under a class action lawsuit because of the way that the legal system works in our country. So I don't believe that those regulatory agencies can do it. I don't think that they can do that. So they can't say these things, but I can.
Yes,
You
yeah, and I
can.
can too,
We can
and
talk
I
about
will.
it.
Yes.
We can talk about it.
Yes.
So that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. And the reason that was so interesting. So I started doing these extra procedures for my own health. So patients would come in and they would look around and they would, go, okay, what's going on? I think something's a little different than last time I was
I know, I
here.
looked at your video. You have a very good YouTube channel that people can look what these procedures look like, and you're
Yep.
very good at communicating what it is. And I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, this is intense,
It's
that.
intense. It looks very different. So
Mhm.
patients started asking me, okay, what's going on? And so I would explain, well, this is something I'm now doing for my own health. This is what happened. This is what I found out. And usually they would all go, well, isn't this probably better for me too? Yes, it is. And then they would start asking me further probing questions. Well, I've heard about that maybe mercury's not so great, but I've also heard like fluoride. Like, what do you know about fluoride? And, they would start referring me to doctors, and the doctors would say, we've been hearing in our conferences that maybe there's some issues with root canals that you dentists aren't talking about. Like, what's really going on with root canals? And I couldn't answer their questions. I couldn't answer any of these questions. And that's a very uncomfortable place for me. I am always a question asker. I want to find
Mhm.
answers. And so I had to keep looking. I had to keep searching and find out is there something else more about root canals that I don't know? Something else more about fluoride that I don't know? And I couldn't believe what I found in the searching. And it's not, I was doing some crazy, obscure, research. It was actually, just straight down the line PubMed articles talking about some of these things. So as that started happening, I thought all of my patients would leave. I thought that they would just think I was super crazy, like, okay, this lady's gone off the deep end. But just the opposite actually started happening. I started getting a lot more patients that were specifically looking for this kind of dentistry. And it's exactly what you said at the beginning, that honestly, change through the profession, it's going to take decades. Like right now, what they're teaching in dental school was really standard of care and practice about 10 years ago. And they're teaching that in dental school. So that means those practitioners are like 20 years behind.
Yeah, and
So
who's funding these dental schools too?
exactly right. So any change that's going to occur isn't going to happen for decades unless you that are listening ask your provider and say, I won't do it unless I do it this way. And
Yes.
what do you know about this? What do you really know? And start finding practitioners that have already asked these questions and have already found answers. So thank you for spreading the word and helping to share this information, because this is how things are going to change. Not through the profession. It's too slow. It's just simply too slow. It'll have to change because of supply and demand. So yeah, some of those other things. So root canals is another one that people really want to know about. And the thing that I love about really being able to share as a practitioner is I've done hundreds of root canals myself. Okay. So this has been
I know my
something
husband was known, he was not an endo, but he loved doing them.
yeah,
He
yeah. I
loved
didn't
doing
love
them.
doing them, but,
Yes.
but
Well, he was really talented at it, but what I
that's
did
awesome.
notice, that it was strange. Now I connect the dots. Once you'll get into root canals, I remember emergency calls on the weekend often and go, oh, that infection just won't go away. It's just always there. And being a perfectionist, he'd be like, well, I know I got all those little, he's like, I know I got in there and all the little canals. And now it all makes sense to me as to
Mhm.
why.
And that's just the great jumping off point, because that's exactly what we do when we're doing a root canal. Is let's first of all, why would you need a root canal? Need. I don't even say need anymore, because nobody needs a root canal. We'll get into that. But basically, if you've been told you need a root canal, why? Well, there's inside of the tooth, there's the enamel on the outside, which is highly mineralized. Lots of minerals. It's the part you see when you smile. The next layer in is called dentin, and it has a lot of tubes, little tubes that take nutrients in and out. I like to think of it like the transportation system in the tooth. It's bringing minerals in, bringing them out everywhere. And then in the very center is the nerve, and that's where the nerve, the blood vessels, everything live. Well, if you have a cavity that's progressed through the enamel into the dentin and it's getting close to the nerve, that's when it starts to hurt. That's when you get sensitive. It's like, oh, yeah, 'cause it's getting by that nerve, and the nerve's telling you. Well, if that tooth is already dying or dead, then that nerve inside of that tooth is also dead. That's the part that's actually dead. It will lead to a swollen face, the kinds of things you've seen in the dental world, these big, big abscesses. Well, so then somebody says you need a root canal. So you go, and what do? They actually remove the nerve, that dead tissue on the inside of the tooth. So when you're talking about canals that your husband was talking about, inside of each tooth, there is 1 to 5 canals. It depends on the tooth. Front teeth, typically 1, back teeth, typically 3 to 4 to 5. And so we're looking for the main canal. It's the main kind of nerve channel inside of the tooth. I'm sure he was an excellent clinician. I'm sure he got all of that cleaned out, but that's not all that's inside of the tooth. Remember that dentin? Inside the dentin, all those little tubes? Well, there's a little extension of nerves that go out in all of those tubes and blood vessels. You know this as a hygienist. This is why you get sensitive teeth,
Mhm.
because if a little enamel is exposed up here at the gum line, it's like, man, that's so sensitive. Why? Because those little tubes carry whatever that cold water or something was all the way to the nerve, and you go, oh, man, that was cold. So those tubes have nerve tissue in them. They're too small to clean, too small to fill. So what happens is, even in the most beautifully, perfectly done root canal, there's still dead tissue inside of the tooth. And anywhere there's dead tissue in the body, it's going to attract bacteria, no matter what. This is just what happens. I always joke and I say, what if you had a gallbladder attack and the doctor said, we got to take your gallbladder out? So they took it out. They cleaned out the inside of it. They stuffed it full of some rubber stuff, which is what we do in root canals, stuff it full of some rubber stuff, and they stuck it back in your body. Why do they not do that?
Yeah.
Because
Isn't dentistry the only health professional that leaves something dead in your body, right?
it is the only thing
Only,
that's
yes.
left dead behind. Exactly. And honestly, the idea of a root canal is awesome. I often say, like, it's awesome, right? You got to keep smiling with it. You got to keep chewing with it. But there's dead tissue there attracting bugs. So if it's attracting bacteria, your immune system has to come and fight it 24/7. It has this immune insult. So your immune system often gets distracted. It can't take care of other things going on, like chronic diseases elsewhere. They start to flourish. They start to really get worse because your body's distracted taking care of this. Eventually, maybe something else goes on in your life. You have something, you get sick elsewhere. Something else happens and your body can't take care of the tooth anymore. So it starts to grow and starts to expand. And literally every single time you chew, you're forcing that growing infection throughout your entire body, throughout the bloodstream. And there are hundreds of diseases that have now been proven to be directly correlated or caused by dental infections like root canals.
Don't you
So
say, I know I've
huge
listened to a couple of
connection.
your podcasts and you mentioned out of all your patient base that women that had breast cancer, you said most of them had an infection in their mouth. Is
Yep,
that
I have
correct?
yet to find someone that
Okay.
had or has cancer that hasn't had an infection in the mouth somewhere, that I can't find an infection in their mouth. Either a failed root canal. So here's the key. The nerve's gone, so now the warning system's gone. The first time you had the toothache, it hurt, right? You're, "Oh, man, something's wrong here." But when you have a failed root canal, it doesn't hurt. Nerve's gone. There's no system that tells you something's going on other than systemic problems. I'll always remember the lady that changed my mind on this. She came in and she had this root canal. I always remember it was like right up here and upper left side. And she pointed to it. She said, I don't know, it just feels weird. And I'm sure you had people saying that as a hygienist, right?
Oh, yes, all the time. Even yesterday,
All the time.
my friend, she's like, I don't know, there's one too. I really need to, look, there's something off. I'm like, yeah, go see the, biological dentist.
Exactly right. And they usually, and they don't like say they hurt, right? They just go, it's just, I don't know, it's just like feels weird, feels off, feels something, hasn't felt right since I had it done. These are all the words that people say. And so I took a regular dental x-ray, the kind you're very proficient at taking. They go in the mouth, you take the x-ray, and we looked at it. It looks fine. Like everything looks completely fine. Every dentist that looked at it would probably say the exact same thing. But I had just gotten a new machine. It's called a cone beam CT scanner. And I want everybody to remember this one, cone beam CT scanner. I had just gotten my first machine. And I said, you know what? Just got this new machine. Let's just go check it out. Let's go see if there's anything going on. Took a scan and my jaw dropped. There was literally a quarter size hole in her jawbone that had been eaten away by the infection at the end of the root canal. And I
Wow.
couldn't see it. I
Wow.
could not see it on a dental x-ray, on a regular dental x-ray. So dentists aren't ignoring these things. They're not just brushing them under the rug. They're not doing that. They literally cannot see them with traditional dental x-rays that are taken every 6 months when you go to the dentist. Because people will tell me all the time, they'll say, well, I was just at the dentist like 3 months ago. Why did they not find this? You can't see it. We couldn't see it, but we can now. On these 3D cone beam CT scans, I can see everything about these teeth. I can tell if they're healthy or not still. I can tell if they're reinfected. I can tell if they've started to eat away the jawbone or the base of the sinus. I mean, I have people that come that have chronic sinus infections, have had, 2 and 3 sinus surgeries. The ENT cannot figure out why the infection keeps coming back. We do a cone beam CT scan and I say, oh, perhaps it's because you have an upper molar with a root canal that's infected. It's eaten away the floor of the sinus and
Wow.
is literally filling the sinus up every single time they clear it out. So they clear it out, it's back within a month because the tooth is draining somewhere and it's draining into the sinus. We find these literally every single day.
Wow.
So I don't recommend root canals anymore because you can't clean them. There's rare instances where it's a 13-year-old kid and they knocked their tooth on a bike and we need to hold that tooth for now. There's rare times where we need to hold that tooth. But usually, just as a rule, we recommend removing the tooth and replacing it with a dental implant if the tooth is dead or dying. But honestly, we save a lot of teeth. A lot of people will come to us for second opinions for root canals. We save a lot of them if they're still alive, but they're just hurting. We use ozone, which kills bacteria,
I
and we're
love
able to
ozone. I
fill
love
and
using
keep them
ozone.
alive. Oh, it's
Yeah.
so amazing. We're
Mhm.
able to do so much with it. So if somebody's told you you need a root canal, don't just take it as gospel doctrine. You know what I mean? It may be that there are ways to save this if the tooth is still alive. And if you've already had a root canal, go get a cone beam CT scan, see if it's healthy or not. And if it's not, I recommend a ceramic dental implant. Now, you talked about metal versus ceramic, kind of what are your thoughts or what have you noticed about this? Which way are people leaning?
Oh, yeah. I think definitely people are leading understanding metal. You don't want any metal in your mouth. There's a lot of talk about the EMFs and whatnot. So I think there's knowledge out there that it makes sense. So I was like, yeah, you don't want any metal in your mouth, And so I think they're definitely open to that. It's just like, okay, who do I see now? What do I put in place? Especially if they want to remove their root canal, they're like, well, I still want a tooth there. I said, well, yeah, but you don't
Mhm.
want the metal, implant. You want a ceramic, and it's very hard right now to find dent. I mean, there are some out there, but you have to look, like you said, either go on your site, go on different sites to look for a biological dentist. I know so many people now that are flying. Either they're probably flying to you, flying to.
Yep.
I met a doctor that he's out in Dr. Dom in Germany, and
Yep.
and so people are just kind of flying to find that, and so I think there's definitely starting to be more of a demand.
Yeah, which is great. And really the EMF thing, I really like to simplify things down to the point where people can just it's like, "Oh, well that makes sense." So anything metal, anything metallic is going to in the presence of frequencies. So we talk about EMFs. This means cell phone, Wi Fi, whatever it might be. It's a frequency, right? How does my email get from your computer to my phone? How does it get there? Like, no, we don't really think about these things, but isn't it miraculous, honestly?
It is.
I mean, it's so freaking cool. It's just amazing. But it's literally a frequency. It's an energy frequency that passes through the air. It's the same way that radio, comes across the way. How do we get a radio? How do we catch it on an antenna? Well, it's a frequency of energy that's coming, literally just electrons that are flowing in a certain wave pattern. Well, each time we up it, 3G, 4G, 5G, it increases and changes these waves. Every time a wave passes through metal, it vibrates the metal particles. So, this is why you don't put a metal pan in a microwave. A microwave is a wave of energy, and that wave of energy passes through the food. It vibrates the particles of food and it heats them up. But when it vibrates metal particles, it also heats them up, and now you're going to have a fire inside of your microwave, right? We don't want this to happen. The same thing happens with 4G, 5G, cell frequencies, all of these things, Wi Fi. It's just a frequency. And when it passes through metal, including metal dental implants, it heats them up. So this was actually discovered in the orthopedic world. There are way more metal knees and hips and shoulders than there are metal teeth, even. But they were finding that these frequencies heat the metal up about 4 to 5 degrees, enough that it kind of cooks the bone around it, and then the implant is being lost. So a lot of implant failures a decade down the road, they were working great, doing awesome, no problem. And all of a sudden, wait a minute, why is this getting loose? Why is the bone going away? It's literally getting cooked
Oh,
because
wow.
of the frequencies we're surrounded by. So it's not even there are some metal toxicity issues and things. Honestly, I don't even have to go there with most people. I just say it's just going to get warm. It's
Yeah.
going to get warm in your head, and it's going to melt the bone, and it's going to not last long term. So let's use a ceramic version that will not heat up. It's non-conductive. So it's called zirconia. Doesn't conduct electricity, won't heat up in frequencies, is not going to melt the bone. So that's why we like to do ceramic. There's a lot of other reasons too. They look much better. The gums like them better. But for me, even just cell phones is a good enough reason.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Now that we're talking about kind of energy and whatnot, because I also feel, trying to explain to people that each tooth, part of the meridian of our body, and each tooth are connected to organs in our body. So if there's an infection there, it's kind of obscuring kind of that energy going to other organs, and how, so I'm not sure, maybe you're a better way to explain it, but how do you explain it to your patient that, okay, depending on which tooth, because some of them are connected to your gut, some your heart, and a
Yep.
lot of people haven't heard that.
Yep. So anytime you start talking about energy, people start going a little cross-eyed.
Yes, yes,
They start
I
saying,
know.
"Oh, I thought she was crazy. Now she's proven that she's crazy. All righty." So I like to back it down to just simple things that everybody understands. So if you go to the doctor right now and they hook you up to a heart rate monitor, you're going to hear the beep, beep, beep. Hopefully you hear that right. If you're dead, you're going to hear beep. So, what is that monitor recording? Or make it even simpler. If anybody's wearing an Apple Watch right now, or a Fitbit, or an Aura ring, what is it measuring? It's measuring the electrical activity in your body. Okay, that heart rate monitor, beep, beep, beep. This is the electrical impulse of your heart pumping, literally of that heart beating. How about an EEG? So, if they want to see if you're brain dead after you've had a car accident, they hook you up to an EEG. What are they measuring? The electrical activity of your brain. Okay, that's what the monitor is showing. When those two things stop, if your heart rate monitor flatlines, if your brain monitor flatlines, it means you're dead, right? Either brain dead or body dead. It means you're no longer alive, because electricity is what enlivens the body. It brings us alive. It's what makes us alive. So every single cell has electricity in it, not just your heart cells and your brain cells. Every single one does. They communicate with each other. That's how our nerves, how I can tap on my fingers right now and I can feel it. Why? Because my brain already told me what this means. Those nerve cells conduct electricity just at the speed of light. So there's 4 places in the body that has basically every single organ represented. And I like to think of it as the way that we charge the body. So if the phone's dead, we plug it in. How do you recharge your cells? Because they're electrical too. We recharge them through movement. That's why we like muscle movement, but we also charge them through four different kind of charging pads. One is your feet. So if you've heard of foot zoning, every single organ system has basically kind of a charging port on the bottom of the feet. Hands, the same thing. There's every single organ system on the hands. The ears is the third, and the teeth is the fourth. Every single tooth has a connection with an organ system. If you think about it, which parts of the body get the most use? Feet, hands, teeth, chewing, swallowing, ears. I haven't quite figured out yet. I'm sure maybe it's the wind blowing through our hair. I don't know what it is, but that's how we recharge our cells is by this, contact and things that literally gives electrons and electricity to our cells. So if you have a tooth problem, an infection on that line, it will actually create a short. It will short circuit the entire line. One of the craziest stories, I just love to tell a story because it's crazy. This patient walked in, he was literally orange. It was a new patient visit, and I thought, I can't ask him why he's orange right out of the gate. That's kind of rude. But, so 15 minutes in, I said, hey, have anybody ever told you you're orange? And he said, everybody asks me if I use self tanning cream, and I don't. I don't know what it is. Well, we took the cone beam CT scan, found he had 4 root canals across these front teeth. He'd hit his mouth on a trampoline when he was about 12 years old and it ended up with root canals. These teeth are connected to the liver and the gallbladder.
Oh, wow.
He literally was jaundiced because of a short circuit in these teeth. It's so crazy. I see it all the time, every day. People will say, I have this issue, and we look at the tooth. So it's called the tooth meridian chart. Go look it up. You can find it on Google, tooth meridian chart. Look it up. You're going to see, oh my gosh, that's the tooth I have a root canal in, and that says it's large intestine. I have such gut issues. Could it be my tooth?
Yes. And then this year, synchronicities, because I'm starting to talk about this. I've had people, I don't know, with heart failure and heart attacks, and they're like, oh, he was really healthy. And all of a sudden, and I'm like, did he have a dental procedure like recently? Like, oh my gosh, yes, he did. And I can't help but connect the dots as trying to ask, okay, well, which tooth? Because some of them connected the heart. So do you have a lot of patients that have had heart issues because of
Yep.
tooth
Because of
infections?
root canals,
Root
also
canals, yeah.
because of sleep issues.
Okay.
Heart issues, sleep issues are one of the number one causes of heart problems that no one's talking about. Because if you're not getting enough oxygen when you're sleeping at night, what happens is basically your heart's job is to deliver oxygen to every single cell in the body. And if there's just not enough to go around, the heart has to pump faster because it has to get more cells to the places because each one of them doesn't have as much oxygen in it. So there's a huge component of what I call health-based dentistry now, where we're looking at this airway piece and the sleep issue. If anybody has high blood pressure, I can almost guarantee you have sleep obstruction of some variety. Something's blocking your getting air at night, maybe even during the day too.
Yeah, the
And
CBCT scan, we could tell. I've done it on me, my
yep,
kids, and my son has dealt with that since a very young age. So we're, using expanders and whatnot. But yes, it was
exactly right.
affecting a lot, his sleep, his behavior, bedwetting, all signs of
Yep,
not quality air oxygen.
it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, and I think for this information, just to allow patients to know kind of where to look. Sometimes it's confusing where to look as far as their symptoms. And oftentimes, I think looking in the mouth is kind of the last place that they'll look. My girlfriend who now has a stent in her heart, almost had a heart attack and goes to the
Mhm.
ER, never correlated back to the infection at root canal. And so I think bringing that awareness is going to be that movement that needs to happen, and that awareness where people are just know where to go and how to find that information. And I know a lot of people are asking about fluoride. I love your toothpaste, your toothpaste, hydroxyapatite, how it really helps remineralize my teeth. My son loves it. My kids do too. And so maybe you can explain a little bit about hydroxyapatite as well.
Yeah. So it's interesting because there's what I like to call kind of some sacred cows in dentistry. Root canals are one of them. Mercury fillings are one of them. Fluoride is definitely one of them. I mean, you are in the dental industry, so we were told and taught that fluoride is going to fix everything, right? And if people don't use fluoride, they're going to have their teeth rot out of their heads. I mean, that's really what we were taught. And There's a little bit of truth there. Fluoride does strengthen teeth. It does. The reason fluoride started was clear back in the 1930s and 40s here in the United States. They found that people who had higher levels of naturally occurring fluoride, so this was typically well water, people who had well water that had higher levels of fluoride had stronger teeth. They also had kind of splotchy teeth. You've seen it, right?
Yes, yes.
You've seen fluorosis. Like
Oh, yes.
sometimes it doesn't look too bad. It's just kind of like real white spots. I have a few of them because my dad was a dentist. So we were bathed in fluoride, you know?
Mhm.
So I have some of them like white spots, but if they get even more fluoride, it actually is brown. It's called mottling. It's quite ugly. It's kind of brown, light brown, white, splotchy all over the teeth. Anyway, so they found that people who had higher fluoride had teeth that looked like this, but they didn't get cavities very often. So they said, well, this is amazing. And really, I like to assume positive intent. Like the reason they started mercury fillings was to save some teeth. The reason they started root canals was to save teeth so people could keep chewing. Like there's positive intent behind a lot of this. The same with fluoride. The reason they started was to help prevent tooth decay, right? To stop tooth decay. And it does work in part. Fluoride does strengthen teeth. What it does is it actually changes the crystal. So teeth are made of something called hydroxyapatite. You learned this in school. I learned this in school. It's just a mineral complex. So a bunch of minerals, magnesium, calcium, phosphorus, all kind of chunked together. That's what our teeth are made of, the part that we can see, the enamel. So when fluoride comes in contact with the enamel, what happens is it replaces calcium. So the calcium comes out and fluoride goes in, and it makes basically a substance called fluorapatite. It's really strong. It's really strong. It's more resistant to tooth decay. Idea is awesome. The problem is anything that you put in your body is going to act on every single cell, whether you want it to or not. This is what we call side effects, right?
Mhm.
People will be like, oh, this medicine was awesome, but the side effects, they were killer. Well, you can't choose it. Every single thing you put in your body will act on every single cell, including fluoride. So, fluoride does swap out the calcium, make a harder crystal in the tooth. Great. It also changes bone structure because bones are largely made of hydroxyapatite, the same structure. So, it swaps out calcium for fluoride, creating a stronger and more brittle crystal. Do you think a brittle bone is concerning at all? As a
Mhm.
tooth, we have kind of layers and it's okay, but a brittle bone's not. So there's research showing higher levels of bone fractures in areas that have higher fluoride. It just changes the density of the bone. So that's kind of strike number one. Strike number two for me is thyroid. So fluoride's interesting. If you look on the periodic table, back from junior high chemistry class, fluoride is right next to iodine and bromine and chlorine. These are called halides. So they're all kind of similar. I like to think of them as cousins. And fluoride is the bigger bully cousin of all of these other molecules. Thyroid hormone requires iodine to activate. So you can have hormone, but it's not active yet. It requires iodine to bind to activate it. Well, fluoride will also bind. But if it's bound with fluoride, you can't actually use it. So you go get a blood test. You're like, I am so tired. Why am I dragging all the time? I can't figure this out. You get a blood test and they come back and they say, it's fine. You have plenty of thyroid hormone, even active thyroid hormone. Why do I feel so lousy then? Because it's bound by fluoride, not by iodine, and your body can't use it. In fact, in the 1970s, they used to give fluoride as a treatment for people who had hyperactive thyroids. It's been known since the 70s that this decreases thyroid function. Have you ever known anyone who has low thyroid function?
Oh, yes. Hey, including me.
Exactly,
That's
including
what I was
you.
diagnosed with. Now I know it's adrenal fatigue and all the other things, but yeah.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
it's all related. And adrenal fatigue is related as well because basically your thyroid and your adrenals are kind of like two horses pulling the same cart, like our energy cart. And if the thyroid gives out, well, then the adrenal horse has to pick up more jobs and then it gives out. So a lot of times thyroid function or thyroid decrease in function is the precursor to a lot of the other energy issues with adrenals and everything else. So fluoride 100% correlated to low thyroid function. So that's strike two. Strike three came in January for me. There was a brand new study, January 2025, showing a direct correlation. Higher fluoride levels in moms gave lower IQ in their children, particularly male children. So,
Wow.
okay, The idea was to eradicate tooth decay. Did it work? Has anyone had a cavity since 1940?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So if the idea was to eradicate tooth decay, it didn't work. And at what cost? Our bones, our thyroid, our IQ levels. There's more I could even go on. Basically, all I needed was 3 strikes. So we
Wow.
said,
And now fluoride is found
uh,
in our drinking water.
it's
It's
everywhere.
yeah.
So it's in the water, it's in the toothpaste,
Oh,
it's
for
in
me,
actually a
being a
lot of other things.
hygienist, you always end your appointment with fluoride, and even I go home with my kids. Oh, let's get this mouth, let's do this, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I
Exactly. What
done?
was I
And now that you're
doing?
talking, I'm like, oh yeah, my daughter, she does have, the fluoride that stains on her front teeth, and then oh my gosh, yeah, she was so susceptible to broken bones, and now it's just like connecting the dots. So,
Uh-huh. It's just crazy when you start
yes,
putting things together.
yes,
Yep.
absolutely, and
So what do you do instead, right? That's the
right.
next question. People are like, "Well, but then I don't want a mouthful of cavities. If it actually works for the teeth, what do I do instead?" Well, cavities aren't a deficiency of fluoride. That's not what a cavity is. What happens for a cavity is basically acid gets on your tooth. Either bacteria in your mouth eat sugar and they create acid, or you put acid there yourself, or the third little known one, your body actually needs minerals elsewhere. So it pulls them from your tooth because it's growing a bone, or you're a 13-year-old kid and you're all of a sudden growing. Well, where did it get the minerals from? From your teeth. So your body needs minerals somewhere, or there's acid on your tooth. Minerals are pulled out, holes are created, bugs crawl in. They create more acid, they dissolve more minerals, they crawl in further. So a cavity is a deficiency of minerals, not of fluoride, but of minerals. So wouldn't it just be cool if we could just put minerals back? Great news, we can. That's actually what these new products are. They have hydroxyapatite. Remember, that's what I told you your teeth are made of. We actually now have products that have hydroxyapatite. We can just put back what came out, just plug the holes. And now we heal cavities, we prevent cavities at the same rate or even better than we did with fluoride. So, why would you ever not use it? Why would you ever use fluoride if there's all these issues? And I've been on dental podcasts saying this exact thing, trying to sound super logical here. Like it's just
Yes.
logic. Why would we do this anymore if we have an alternative that works just as well and has no side effects? Hydroxyapatite, it's minerals. So if you get a little extra, guess what? Bonus. You
Right.
needed a little
Yes.
extra.
And that's
It's
why
just,
I love,
it's
not
just
only are you a
no.
dentist, but you went to school to be a naturopath as well. So you're kind of blending both, which I love. And
Yeah.
and I know I love your newest book, Living Well, and how you describe, nutrition and bringing light. Because in my book that I was just in editing right now, The Gut God Connection, I say that how sacred your meals have to be and the light you put in. And you're talking about minerals and how nutrient dense that we need to eat on a daily basis for nourishing our teeth to keep them strong and to keep our cells strong, to heal ourselves on a cellular level. So I love that you blend that as well in your practice and your book. Your book is phenomenal. By the way, I have a request. My family has been visiting from Quebec City and we're French. So they want your book in French.
I would love my book in French as well. Tell the publisher. I will tell the publisher.
Okay, they really want it because I was taking screenshots and I was trying to translate it for her, and she was really open because she, has metal, root canals. I'm trying to explain this. She was staying with us for 2 weeks, and you have recipes and the way you explain it in your book to simplify your detoxing. I know I'm kind of verging off, but I get really
All
excited
right.
about nutrition and overall health and how you do by seasons. You do detox by
Yep.
seasons, different organs, and you have recipes and you explain it, scientifically, but also, yeah, giving all the background. And it just makes sense. It
Yeah.
just makes sense that we need to heal on the cellular level. And there's how to do it naturally as well. There are things, yes, there are medicines that are out there that are great. If you've just, car accident, big, and you're in so much pain, you're going to want a painkiller, but there's that balance, right? We need to kind of
Mhm.
bring back a balance, a harmony of using, uh, what God-given gifts, like our nutrition comes to that. Do you now have where you live, like your own kind of garden? Do you grow most of your foods or?
Yeah, I have a huge garden. Actually, I'm looking out onto it right now. It's just getting to the end of the season, and I'm a little sad. Just yesterday, I told my husband, I said, the cucumbers are going to end soon. I'm a little sad right now, but nutrition is absolutely essential. And it's essential with dental health as well. People don't realize that oftentimes, everybody just thinks sugar causes a cavity. Actually, it's just lack of minerals.
Lack of
And you can
minerals.
heal cavities with minerals on the outside, which are the products we're talking about: tooth powder, toothpaste, anything with hydroxyapatite, minerals on the inside. I also have what's called tooth bone formula, which is like tooth specific minerals, vitamin D, vitamin K. So essential. It's just like I said, I just like to present things logically, because sometimes we get so caught up in the latest clickbait headline and, oh, did you hear this? But nobody's really understanding the underneath part of it. Like, for example, I have xylitol in my tooth powders. And all of a sudden, this article came about how it was going to kill your gut, if you use any kind of xylitol. So we got just this onslaught of questions of people saying, why do you have xylitol in your tooth powder? It's going to kill my gut, and my gut's not going to function at all anymore. So I went and dove into the research article. What I found is that the amount of xylitol they were using, actually, I have a tooth powder right here. The amount of xylitol they were using in the research article was equal to 14 of these
Oh,
jars.
wow.
So you would have to literally eat, just consume 14 of these jars per day
Oh,
to
wow.
get the amount of xylitol that they were talking about in the article that was leading to gut function issues. So that's the kind of problem with our world today, with these, just clickbait headlines and everybody just pulling one sentence out of research articles. That's why I just try to bring it down to, let's just talk about reality here. Let's
Yes.
just talk about the way the body works and about how our cells respond in response to different things. Because when we understand it that way, we don't need the clickbait headline. We just get it. And we
Yes.
just almost intrinsically know what we need to do, because our bodies are built to heal themselves. This is one of my favorite things to say.
So
So
true.
if you have a cut finger, you might put a Band-Aid on it, right? Might put a Band-Aid on it, but does the Band-Aid actually heal you?
No.
No, right? My granddaughter thinks it does, so I won't tell her any differently, but no, the Band-Aid doesn't actually heal the finger. What heals the finger? Your cells have to come together, like your skin cells literally have to come together and knit themselves back together again so your skin doesn't pull apart. And you know what the amazing thing is? You didn't have to tell it to do it. Like, it knew how to do it all on its own. Our bodies are absolutely miraculous. They have everything in them to stay well. Our job is just to give ourselves what they need to do their job. And that's partly what one of the things in the book is an assessment. I call it a cell translator, like a symptom translator. It translates what are your cells saying into what should I do about it. But that's really a key thing that I really want people, kind of want to bring home at the end, is just your body has the ability to stay well. You need to pay attention to it. You need to listen to symptoms for what they are. They're your cells talking to you. Even your teeth. If you have tooth decay, if you have cavities, it's your cells saying, hey, listen, you are not giving me enough minerals. I need more here. So it's just time that we learn how to listen to what our cells are saying and trust ourselves again. Trust
Yeah.
ourselves, trust nature, trust all the things that Mother Earth has given us. It's all here to help us be well. We just have kind of forgotten how to use it. So that's really
Yes.
what one of my main messages is let's just remember how to use it again.
I absolutely love that. That's my philosophy as well. And so I'm so honored. How can people follow you? I love your YouTube page, first of all. It's is it Living Well or is it under your name? I forget.
Living Well with Dr. Michelle.
Okay, Living
So
Well
yep,
with
Living Well
Dr.
with Dr.
Michelle.
Michelle. Yep, and that's where all the social channels are. So just go on there and get stuff for free. Like, there's a whole bunch of free stuff on there. I release a new video every single week. Just go check it out. If you were interested in the book, you can go to livingwellbook.com. There's a whole bunch of extra bonuses there as
Yeah,
well.
I brought your
For you to
cookbook too.
tell
I
where.
even bought the Healthy Mouth as well.
Nice.
So they are fantastic books. And now I'm just honored to be as well an affiliate, only because I'm only going to be an affiliate to things that I use, personally use and believe and know the product and the heart behind it. So you can use gratitude as a code, a 10% discount, because I'm honored to spread the word and your products and what you're doing. So I thank you. I thank
Love it.
you,
Thank you.
what you're doing for the dental community because, yeah, I don't want to get any more text messages saying we lost another dentist. So bring
Nope.
that
Nope.
awareness and as well for patients, who root cause of, maybe brain fog and inflammation, disease, to start looking and asking the questions. So thank you so much for being here today. And
Thank
if
you
you
for the
know
opportunity.
anyone that might, be this podcast might be helpful, pass it along, like and share it. I'd be honored. So thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you.